Afternoon, everyone. As Stuart said, my name is Pete Andrews, and I represent the SME in the Catapult GE sandwich of an innovation project. So you're here to get I'm here to give you the perspective from a micro SME about trying to deliver innovation into offshore wind. Just briefly, my background is in operating power generation assets. So it's 10 years in conventional oil and gas power plant, and the final 5 years I was operating an offshore wind farm on the south coast, the Rampion project. So everyone's aware of the industry. That was obviously not in the Northern Powerhouse, but has sort of led to where I am now. So I left that role and founded Catapult at the start of this year to try and develop new technology for the sector. So just before we get into the detail of the project, I just wanted to kind of discuss some of the macro trends in offshore wind in the UK. One of the disadvantages of being a micro SME is I'm also the graphic design department. So if you don't like the green, I'm entirely to blame. But what we have here in the green, it's the range of wind turbine sizes that are installed year by year from 2004 to 2026 as projected. And then the blue line is the lowest price in pounds per megawatt hour that's achieved in the market. So what does this tell us about the industry? Very simply, the turbine sizes have increased massively from 2 megawatts to 12. And Anthony will talk about the largest wind turbine platform in the world. And that has coincided with huge price drops for the energy from offshore wind, down from £160 a megawatt hour down to less than 40 in the coming years. Less than 40 is significantly below the average wholesale power price. It's a real, unbelievable step change in the industry. This graph is matched with capacity of installed sites. So in the early days, wind farms were 50, 60 megawatts. The future, 2022 onwards, we're well over a gigawatt per site. This revolution of the industry, if we're honest, is driven by capital and economies of scale. It's been the tier one supply chain and the developers that have achieved this. But importantly, this sharp drop in power price comes from a change in incentive mechanism. So all through here, we have a fixed price power, and then we go into an auction system for contracts for a difference. And that that sort of innovation, if you like, has allowed this rapid value back to the customer and the taxpayer. So it's important to think, when thinking of innovation, we're not only talking about technology, bigger wind turbines, it's the whole holistic way the industry is developed. Just to echo something Stuart said, so the tier one suppliers typically aren't UK wind turbine manufacturers, but approximately half of the through life cost of an offshore wind farm is OPEX. So we think, multi-billion pound capital investment, but through a 25-year life, a similar amount will be spent in operating that site. And as Stuart said, for me, that's where the opportunity exists. We've had this huge evolution in technology on the upfront investment side. From my perspective as a wind farm operator, the O&M practice is still relatively immature. There's a lot of opportunity there, which is why I then left and founded Catapult. So we have formed a company to offer structural integrity management for wind farms, and our key goal is to develop a unique wind farm structural inspection for bolted flanges. It's very niche, but that, if successful, will be unique IP that exists within the UK that we hope to export globally. This is the reason we're doing it. No one wants to see their wind turbine looking like that. The status quo in the industry is to go and retighten all structurally critical bolts every 5 years. the bolts are up to M80 diameter, so they can weigh 20 kilos each. So the wrench you need to tighten a 20 kilo bolt is significant. You're into a huge operation, and approximately you're talking £5,000 a year per turbine to tighten all those bolts. And when you're an operator with thousands of wind turbines, that quickly starts to ramp up. So we sort of identified that opportunity and decided that's what we wanted to focus on. So we formed a project and looked for innovation support. And in the end, we were successful with Innovate UK in a collaborative project with Catapult and with GE. So roughly the format of the project is to validate our technology, which we've done at small scale, at industrial scale in lab conditions, move on to the Catapults, the demonstrator turbine, which Stuart mentioned, and then potentially on to the world's largest operational wind turbine platform. And what that will give us is huge validation for the industry, an opportunity to demonstrate that our technology can add value directly. So just to wrap things up, just a note on funding and where we've sought support. So there are local programs, there are national programs, they're industry specific, roughly. The truth is we wouldn't be developing this technology at anywhere near the rate that we are without the support of Innovate UK. But it's not been trivial. You know, the effort to create a high quality bid, I would classify as weeks rather than days. The likelihood of success, speaking with colleagues at Catapult, is maybe less than 10%, even if you think you've got a good project. Even having been awarded a project, getting it set up, getting agreements in place, getting underway is not a trivial exercise. So there's been an awful lot of commitment from us in terms of time and future commitment in non-eligible cost just to get an innovation project off the ground. So it hasn't been a straightforward decision to follow this route, but we made the call that this was the fastest way to get into commercialisation. And fortunately, I can stand here and hopefully be successful. I think the other thing to say is about the support, the industrial support that is out there. So initially, when we formed the business, we applied for an Innovate grant in isolation, which wasn't successful. We have good relationships with Catapult, and we're speaking to them about the technology. They were interested. They obviously had their assets that can support, but critically, they were able to make the link with industry. So we wouldn't have the relationship with GE without the conversation with Catapult. So having failed once, we were able to utilise the industry body to make a connection with a major player in the industry that validates there is a commercial opportunity here. We went back to Innovate and we're successful. So for us, it's been a good news story, but it's definitely not the case that this is an easy decision to follow, because there's an awful lot of, as I said, ineligible costs and things that do mean it's not a kind of net zero investment from an SME's perspective to deliver a project like this. So thank you very much.